Okay, y'all, grab your grimoires. It's witchy lesson time, lesson 1, part 2, extended version. Let's talk about the different types of witches, historically, culturally, and magically. Now, today we're going to be exploring the different witch paths because there's no one true way to be a witch. Now, let's start with the simplest distinction: solitary witch versus coven witch. Solitary witches practice alone. Most beginner witches start here because it's private, intuitive, and you pretty much get to learn at your own pace. Whereas coven witches typically practice in a group, more traditional ritual group work, celebrates holidays or different things like that. It's more grouped together. I will say, before joining a coven, definitely research that coven, their traditions, their beliefs, because they may not align with yours as well. Also, remember, your path is fluid. It's not permanent. You can choose to be a solitary witch now and join a coven later on, or you could start off in a coven and choose a solitary path, or never join a coven, or always be a part of one. It's really your choice. It's your path. It's your route to take. And my honest opinion would be to follow your energy wherever it leads you. Now let's talk about regional and cultural paths because witchcraft looks different around the world. Traditional witches are witches who typically practice based off of historical traditions or old ways, so to speak, that have been passed down from generation to generation. Now, Granny or Appalachian witches practice a blended practice of Christian faith, herbal healing, and mountain folk wisdom. Next we have Bruja, also known as Brujeria. This practice is done typically by people of Hispanic or even Latin descent. It is rooted in indigenous, African, and Catholic, if I'm not mistaken, influence. Now, conjure, or also known as root work, is an African American folk magic that, if I'm not mistaken, comes from the South. And this practice was born out of resilience, spiritual connection, and ancestral power. Next up is Sadir witches. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but these witches are of Norse traditions, typically practicing trance, rune work, spiritual journeys, and even so much as ancestral works. And then lastly for this section, we have the Celtic witches. These witches typically work with the Fae, the land, and ancient Irish, Scottish, and Welsh lore. Now, I'm just going to put this disclaimer up. Some practices are known to be close practices where you have to have lineage or traditional alignment in some way, or even so much as do an initiation to be able to join that practice. That is if you're going to be doing coven work within that practice. It's your practice at the end of the day. I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't do. All I can say is respect what needs to be respected and live your spiritual path. Now, let's get into the practice-based witches. These witches are pretty generalized, and it's typically based off of your personal abilities and really what you feel aligned to. So you have green witches. These witches typically are going to be your herbalists, witches who like to frolic in the woods, things like that. Those are your green witches. Whereas your kitchen witches are going to also work with herbs, but it's going to be stuff in the kitchen, making teas, baking breads, things like that. Next, you have your elemental witches. These witches are going to be the witches who obviously work with elements: earth, wind, water, fire, and spirit. A lot of people don't really know what the fifth element is in witchcraft, and it's spirit or energy, depending on what your beliefs are. And then you have more defined elemental witch, also known as a sea witch. These witches only work with the water element, or even so much as items from the sea. Seashells, salt, fish, different things that have to do with the sea or ocean itself. That's a sea witch. Next is shadow witches. These witches typically work with the subconscious mind, healing, and can even be trauma, but that's not just shadow itself. It's the shadow side of oneself in which a shadow witch works. Whereas a dream witch may also work with the same shadow styles as a shadow witch, but they do more lucid dreaming, astral projection, and maybe even dream walking itself. Lastly, for this section, we have our tech witches. Tech witches is more new aged because of the fact that tech is more new aged. But these witches are able to blend their software systems, their phones, their tablets, computers, all those things with their craft itself, which can be pretty cool. I'm kind of curious if there's any tech witches that are following me. Drop it in the comments because I got some questions for you. Finally, we're going to talk about spiritual and pop cultural paths. These are more of your new age styled witchcraft because they've popped up over the last 100 years. Whereas, not including the tech witch that we just talked about, but all of the other stuff that I had discussed has been around for a couple 100,000 even years. So first up is Wiccan witches. These witches practice a Wicca or Wiccan belief system, and they typically celebrate the Sabbats, Samhain, Yule, Ostara, things like that. Now, eclectic witches are witches who typically will borrow from many different traditions across the board, but they do it respectfully. Then you have crystal witches. Now, there's a lot of people on here who have bought crystals off of Crystal Talk, and I'm just gonna say, y'all need to start working with y'all's crystals. Y'all already got them. Own it. You're a crystal witch now. Next, we have glamour witches. These witches typically use beauty, clothing, and a general appearance as their spell work. Lastly are urban witches. These witches will typically take modern everyday life and turn it into their spell work. And maybe their days are the most magical days. There is no hierarchy here. There's no real or fake path. Your path unfolds the second that you open your eyes and follow it. Until next time, keep your circles sacred and your spirits wild. Love y'all.